When you're doing an action movie like this, everything is adrenaline.
I'm basically putting the actors on the ride so they can just act.
You pay $200 to get into a park to get thrown around. I actually get paid to do it.
Hi, I'm Brad Peyton, the director of Atlas, and we're about to go behind the FX. Atlas is about a woman who doesn't trust anyone, who is searching for an AI terrorist and ironically finds trust in another AI.
It was very important to Brad that the visual effects felt very grounded, and so we relied on doing as much practically as we could.
15 feet in the air, there's a base, and the arc is locked onto that. And this base is basically a series of hydraulics.
The machine could actually really start shaking or really start moving. Sometimes, you know, they'd shake it and they were like, should we go up to 10? Are we on 7? It just depended on like how intense the moment was.
Sometimes we would have to like joystick control it, and then sometimes I'm like, all right, I want this explosion to be bigger, and you put the stunt double in and I'd crash it all around. You know, like every inner 15-year-old, you're like, let's see how fast I can make this thing go.
We had a really good idea of what all the choreography was going to be for the fight sequences before we started shooting. You've got Banks in a cockpit and Jennifer in a cockpit. You have to shoot both of them using the tech viz and the programmed motion base so that they're doing the right thing inside the cockpit, and then choreograph all the CG characters around them. It's stunts, it's special effects, it's visual effects, and it's camera department all working together to make this thing synchronized.
How do I shoot backwards?
If you synced, you would know the shoulder cannon can swivel.
Just shut up and swivel!
I went through with the VFX team and I said, okay, in this scene, we need her to be clumsily walking. She hasn't learned how to operate this arc.
Well, there was no resistance against my legs. I had to kind of create all of that and make believe like I couldn't move.
He falls down in the middle of a battle. She just doesn't really have the knack on how to control him yet. What she's doing in the cockpit can't be altered once it's shot.
It's just kind of using your body and your imagination of what that would be like and how frustrating it would be. And
Jen's a dancer, so she could easily get into this like, okay, there's a rhythm to this.
Even though those shots look simple, they're in a lot of ways some of the most technical, most challenging shots in the movie.
I found for me, it works much better when I don't overthink it, when I just kind of act from instinct.
Everyone's got cues for where the arc would lurch, where it would fall over, where it would start running, where an explosion would go off.
Let's go, bitch.
The action director, stunt coordinator Al, and I really wanted to make sure that we had as much practicality in there as possible. The physicality is one of the ways that really just connect you to the character, and I like to think that Harlan is a killer, but very much moves with the grace of a dancer.
Simu rehearsed with the stunt team for about 2 weeks, and we used his footage wherever we could. And when we couldn't, we match animated him exactly.
That involved a lot of things, right? It was jumping onto these platforms, you know, it was a lot of harness work, dangling 50 feet in the air.
Brad's thing is like everything needs to evolve. When you first see him fighting, it's sort of hand to hand. He's got this sword that comes out of his hand, and you're like, oh, okay, that's sort of next level. The sword actually comes apart and turns into a whip, and we're like, okay, well, that's next level.
Harlan's weapons, it's this kind of sword whip that comes out of his fingers. His hand kind of splits open. It's kind of a gross shot. Obviously, very difficult to do practically because my hand doesn't open up like that.
And we had a stub, kind of a T-bar handle that he could grab.
And I was throwing that thing around, and credit to the wonderful people at VFX for taking my nonsensical movements and attaching this really badass whip to it.
We just tried to come up with something that would surprise the audience and keep them entertained. The slide between the legs, the jump over the lava pool, and the standing up on top of Smith's head were really the 3 biggest pieces that he had to master.
I couldn't really tell in the moment what that would look like. All I knew is that it was a really fun stunt. It was me getting basically wire pulled and then lifted as I was like trying to beat the crap out of this giant 20-foot mech, and seeing it all come together. I mean, it was cooler than I ever could have even imagined.
Experience the incredible visual effects of Atlas only on Netflix.